It was a beautiful, calm day. My sweet daughter holding my hand and looking up at me with a smile. My loving husband is next to me. I was enjoying a very happy time until I met that man.
Hey, long time no see.
Long time. Ian, my ex-husband, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, approached us with a nasty smile on his face.
Did she have a baby? Huh, an old woman like you? I wouldn't be a mother if I were your age.
It's none of your business. Leave me alone. I tried to walk away and move on, but my ex-husband stood in front of me. He kept talking, his eyes licking me from head to toe. And then, as if he couldn't take it anymore, he started to laugh.
You are old. You know that? How disgusting. Hey, you're her new husband? You lose your life if you don't think about what's good and bad for you. I can't believe you married this old hag.
The words with my ex-husband never seemed to stop. I clenched my fist when I couldn't take it anymore. I was stopped by my husband, Wesley, who was standing next to me, smiling calmly.
Ian, am I right? Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. I learned a lot, and you were absolutely right.
My name is Quinn. I met and married my ex-husband Ian at the company I was working for at the time. Ian was a section manager, and he was my subordinate. After we got married, I wanted to have children right away. However, I could not have a child at the age of 34. So, I decided to have an infertility treatment. After a long period of time, I was 38 years old when I finally got pregnant. I was really happy when I found out that I was going to be a mother. It was my first pregnancy, and I will give birth at an advantaged age. In addition, I had to work and raise a child at the same time. I had no end of worries. But more than that, the joy and happiness of having the child I have dreamed of for so long in my belly was greater. I was filled with anticipation that I was going to make a happy family with my child and Ian. But Ian was not so sure. Fertility treatment is expensive. I spent most of my pre-marriage savings on treatment. On top of that, the side effects tended to make me physically ill. It became difficult for me to do the same amount of work as before I got married. So I decided to change my job. After changing my job, my salary dropped to half of what it had been before. I was able to work less and concentrate on my fertility treatment with peace of mind. However, Ian had grown tired of me. The truth was, Ian seemed to like me because I worked hard and made good money. At the time, there was no sign of marriage for me, and I was on the road to success with my work. He took notice of my good earning ability, and that was the reason he married me. And yet, after we married, I said I wanted to have a baby. Ian didn't forgive me for changing jobs so easily and undergoing expensive fertility treatment. So he slapped divorce papers on me and left me. I would stand for a while at how easily our marriage ended. But I had to be strong for the sake of this child I was carrying in my belly. I had to raise her well on my own. I explained the situation to the company and worked my butt off. With the help of my parents, I managed to give birth to my child. When I finally held my baby girl in my arms, I felt like the happiest in the world. I couldn't stop crying with happiness. But the one who was even happier than I was my new husband, Wesley. I met Wesley as a business partner at my former company. At that time, we had a good relationship as business partners. He was very disappointed when I resigned. After a while, we met again as business partners at my current company. He knew about my situation and was very kind and concerned about me. Wesley and I had always thought well of each other. It didn't take long for us to become close in our private life as well. Before the birth of my child, I remarried Wesley. And for the next few years, I was very happy. Wesley loved my daughter Ruby very much, even though she was not his own child. He takes care of Ruby to the point of overprotectiveness. After giving birth, when I became ill, he told me not to push myself too hard. He took care of the housework and Ruby almost by himself. I knew Wesley truly cared about me and Ruby. One day, we went for a walk in the park nearby. The weather was nice and Ruby fell asleep right after we got to the park. Then I saw a familiar figure walking ahead of me. I quickly took Wesley by the arm and tried to go the other way, but it was too late. The person who seemed to have noticed me looked at Wesley and Ruby with a surprised expression on his face. He then approached us with a smirk and a nasty smile on his face.
Long time no see.
Ian, long time.
Did you have a baby?
Yeah. You got a problem with that?
No. I'm just wondering, how could an old woman like you be a mother, you know?
It's none of your business. Leave us alone. Ian stands in front of me as I try to avoid him and move on. After moving his gaze to lick me from head to toe, as if he couldn't stand it any longer, Ian started laughing.
You are too old to be a mother. You know that?
It's disgusting. Ian's words never seemed to stop, and he looked into the stroller.
Your kid? She's ugly. Just like you.
Please, don't you dare say one more word.
Or,
if it was just about me, I could put up with it. But I couldn't take it anymore when someone makes fun of my child. Ian narrowed his eyes in amusement as I took a step forward. Before I could open my mouth, he quickly shifted his gaze to the side. Ian was looking at Wesley, who was right beside me.
I can't believe anyone would marry this old hag. And she's got a kid with someone else?
Really? Stop it! It's got nothing to do with you.
Well, Quinn, you made a lot of money. That's all you were ever worth.
Without money,
there's no reason you want to be with Quinn, you know?
My ex-husband is approaching Wesley and is smiling like a devil.
In this world, everything is about profit and loss, brother. Fools who can't think in terms of profit and loss would not survive. Just like Quinn here. Quit her job to have a child. Those who don't understand profit and loss will just fail. You'd better watch out too, Mr. New Husband. Maybe you were the kind of person who doesn't understand profit and loss when you married Quinn. Ha ha ha.
Ian's loud laughter echoes in the peaceful park. He made fun of not only me, but also my child and Wesley. I couldn't stand it anymore, and I clenched my fist and was about to approach my ex-husband. Then Wesley, who had been silently watching over the situation, restrained me. Quinn, wait. Calm down. Wesley, I can't stay silent after being told something like that. I understand how you feel, but violence is not acceptable. Wesley smiled at me, and I lowered my fist.
Quinn, do you know this gentleman?
He used to be one of my subordinates at the company I worked for. I didn't dare tell him that he was my ex-husband. I don't even want to say that I once married this horrible person. Wesley already seemed to know that Ian was my ex-husband without me having to tell him. He smiled deeply and nodded in understanding.
So it was you. Quinn, take care of Ruby for me, okay?
Wesley said so and handed the stroller to me. And then Wesley stepped forward to protect us from my ex-husband. He looked straight at Ian with a soft smile on his face as usual.
Ian, am I right? Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. It is true that profit and loss are very important, not only financially, but also in terms of the people involved. Sometimes it's better to think in terms of profit and loss. What you said is very reasonable and important. Well, you're not as stupid as I thought you were. Then you shouldn't be with Quinn. You know better.
My ex-husband glanced at me. He was grinning more than ever. He put his hands around Wesley's in a friendly manner, as if he thought Wesley was on his side. Wesley continues his words while brushing Ian's hands away.
You know, my father owns a business. And in business, it is very important to calculate profit and loss. That's why I'll talk to my father about what you said today, Ian. Is your father present? If you want, I can talk to him directly.
Ian's eyes lit up. It's obvious he's trying to take advantage of it. He still likes money and titles. How could he act so differently with someone he just made fun of? I was beyond amazed.
I know you're probably busy, Ian, so I'll let my father know. I'm sure my father will be in touch with you soon. Well then, I'll leave you alone for today.
With that, Wesley took Ruby and me and started to walk away. As we passed each other, Ian looked down at me. I felt a little pity for Ian. Wesley's idea of telling his father was not as good as Ian imagined it would be. I rather admire his naiveness to take it all as a good thing. I am sure my ex-husband will be called out of his office soon. Ian, who took Wesley's words as meaning what he said, didn't notice anything. Wesley's father is the president of a company that is an important business partner of the company Ian works for. Wesley was out of his father's company because he was now gaining experience as a working adult at another company. That's probably why Ian didn't know about Wesley. I also learned about Wesley just before we got married. Wesley's parents have been really good to me. When they found out that I was pregnant with my ex-husband's child, they didn't say anything to reject me. They supported me when I was struggling to take care of my first child. Ruby is very attached to my parents-in-law, and it's so lovely to see them all playing together. If my father-in-law had heard what my ex-husband said today, he would be in a big trouble. Ian actually went to work the next day and was called out by his furious boss. The president of the important business partner complained to him by name. This president was, of course, my father-in-law. My father-in-law, who knew the circumstances of our divorce, was furious. He made a phone call to Ian's boss and told him about his bad attitude and how important it was to educate his employees. My son told me that he was told by one of your employees about the importance of profit and loss.
You should think carefully about how much profit or loss you could make by one person's mistake.
When Ian's boss asked him what was going on, he finally understood the situation and called me. Hello?
Quinn, I'm sorry.
What is it now? An apology? I was taken aback by the apology I heard before I answered. I knew he would call me sooner or later, but I didn't expect it to be so soon. He must have been in a great hurry, because he kept apologizing over and over again.
I'm really sorry. Please, forgive me.
Forgive? After you made fun of us like that? I thought to myself. What's wrong? Did you hear from my father-in-law? I heard him choking on my sarcasm on the other side of the phone. I guess he's got your kind advice, you know?
I'm really sorry.
I apologize.
I'd like you to let me apologize to your current husband and the president in person.
Did your boss tell you to apologize?
Yes. I was told not to return to the company until I apologize in person and get your forgiveness. Please, help me. We were married once. Please.
Quit it. You've only seen me as someone who earns good money, right? You're getting carried away now. And you told me it was all about profit and loss. For me, it's a loss to keep you near my husband and my father-in-law. Talking to you who made fun of my daughter and my husband, it's nothing but a loss to me. So this phone call is such a waste of time for me. If you understand, don't call me again.
No.
I hung up the phone without hearing Ian's last words. He had said a lot of horrible things to me, and I still didn't have enough to say. But at least I feel a little better. My ex-husband must be panicking right now. After a while, bad reputation spread throughout the industry. To begin with, my ex-husband had always had a tendency to look down on others and was not a man with a good reputation. When we worked together, I often had to clean up his mess. But after I quit my job, there was no one to cover up his mess. Frustration with Ian gradually built up both inside and outside the company. And then this happened. Apparently, Ian's boss was mad at him because my father-in-law's company was one of their biggest clients. In the end, Ian quit his job because he couldn't stay at the company. He is having a hard time finding a new job. I received a long email from Ian asking me to introduce him to a new job. In one of the emails, he wrote something like, "I know I said some terrible things, but I really love you, Quinn." How disgusting. Rumor has it that after he divorced me, he started dating a very young woman. But Ian had lost his job and could not seem to find another job. So she left him. You get what you deserve. He kept sending me emails saying, "I want you to help me because it's your fault that I'm in this pitiful situation." Or, "You should help me because I still love you." Well, it's a very definition of karmic retribution. I've been ignoring all the emails, but the frequency of them has been increasing lately, so I'm thinking of blocking them. I'm still living happily with my loving husband Wesley and my daughter Ruby. Recently, Ruby had started to talk, and I can't take my eyes off of her. Ruby is growing up so fast. I, Wesley, and my in-laws are very much in love with her. I would like to keep this family happy forever.
Call an ambulance. Hurry up, you moron.
My husband, who always rubbed me the wrong way, collapsed on the floor in a greasy sweat. The paramedics arrived immediately. They quickly checked my husband's condition and put him on a stretcher. Then they said to me, "Are you his wife, aren't you? Could you come with us to the hospital?" My husband was put on the stretcher and looked at me with clinging eyes. I looked him right in the eye. "No, I will not." I said that firmly with no hesitation. "What?" My husband's voice came out as if he had lost his mind. "This man is a stranger, so I am not coming." "What?" "Please, take care of the rest." "Wait, Lydia, wait!" I then confronted my husband with something I had been carrying in my pocket for the past few days. The moment he saw it, his face turned even paler. "How dare you treat me like a slave all these years? This is my revenge. I will never forgive you." My name is Lydia. I'm a 36-year-old housewife. I live in a rented apartment with my husband Caleb. I was introduced to Caleb by a colleague at work when I was still working as a full-time employee. My colleague had a lot of friends, and I was often invited to parties. I am more of an introvert, and I like to watch movies or cook by myself. I was not comfortable with large group activities, so I kept turning them down. One time, a colleague invited me to come to a barbecue with his friends. At first, I refused as usual, but my colleague insisted and I ended up participating. On the day of the barbecue, there were just so many people there. One of them was Caleb, who later became my husband. I was having a drink at a little distance from the group of people who were having a good time. Then, a colleague of mine came with Caleb. According to my colleague, he wanted to let us meet each other for the simple reason that we seemed to have similar interests. I was surprised at the suddenness, but Caleb started talking to me. He was nicely tanned and was clearly an outdoorsy type. When I actually talked to him, I found him to be sociable and humorous. I had thought that Caleb and I, who prefer to be alone and are indoor people, would not get along. But as we talked, we found out that we had common interests, just as my colleague had said, and we hit it off right away. We exchanged contact information on the spot, and we even made plans to meet up on our next day off. We went out for dinner and shopping several times, and we ended up dating. After several years of dating, Caleb proposed to me and we got married. Caleb had always been kind to me, even before we started dating. He was the ideal man to take me out of my indoor lifestyle. That didn't change after we got married. But over the past few years, he started to do and say things that made me feel a little uncomfortable. I quit my job and became a housewife because Caleb himself wanted me to. However, he often makes sarcastic remarks about it. For example, when I got sick and was late cooking dinner, "I'm home, Lydia." "Hey, why my dinner isn't ready yet?" "Hi, sorry, I was sick today. I had a rest earlier and I couldn't get up. Can you go take a bath first?" "Huh? What's that? You are a housewife. You should at least take care of the meal." Caleb never worried about my health, which made me very sad. Another time, "Hey, Caleb, there is a reunion coming up in my hometown. I'll finish my chores. So, can I go?" "Suit yourself. Well, being a stay-at-home wife is great, you know.
I envy you, Lydia. You get to play around with the money your husband makes.
He's usually so nice to me, carrying my purse and bringing me flowers after work. But sometimes he acts like a jerk. I even thought that maybe he wanted me to work. So I suggested that I take a part-time job. But Caleb insisted that was not the case. In the end, I was still a full-time housewife. One day, one of Caleb's relatives called me out of the blue. I picked up the phone, feeling a little defensive. The relative on the other end of the line called my name in a panic. Caleb's mother has collapsed. I froze for a moment at the unexpected words. According to my relative, she had gone to visit my mother-in-law a few hours earlier. She found my mother-in-law lying in the yard. She called an ambulance, which rushed to the scene and took my mother-in-law to a general hospital. I prepared myself in a panic and ran out of the house. When I arrived at the hospital, I was told that her condition was still too unpredictable. As we were talking about this, Caleb came running in, out of breath. We moved to the hospital room to check on my mother-in-law. Sleeping in bed, my mother-in-law's body was covered with various tubes and it was painful to watch.
Mom!
My husband called out to her, but of course, she did not respond. Caleb stayed in the hospital room for the rest of the day, and I decided to go home and get everything I needed for the hospital stay. After a while, my mother-in-law recovered enough to be able to sit up by herself. However, it is difficult to do anything without someone's help. I'm glad she's able to get up. I wonder if she will be able to walk again if she continued to do her physical therapy. When my mother-in-law's discharge date was approaching next week, I said this to Caleb. Then, he started to say something I didn't understand.
Oh yeah. Are you ready? We'll be leaving this house next week, so you'd better start packing our stuff.
I couldn't understand what he meant. Caleb seemed annoyed, as if he didn't like my reaction.
We don't need this house, since we are going to live with my mom at my parents' house. You're still as damn as ever, aren't you?
Does that mean I'm going to live with my mother-in-law after she gets out of the hospital? I never heard anything about that. What? Did you decide to move in together without talking to me? Have you already canceled the lease on this house? When I said that, my husband became even more grumpy.
Of course, I've already canceled the lease. It's the right thing for us to do as a family, to live together and help her. Don't tell me you don't want to live with her, do you? I'm the one who makes our living, so I won't accept any complaints.
He said so and went back to his room with deliberate footsteps. I never thought that Caleb would take such a hard-line approach. I can't believe he's canceling the lease on this apartment. I have no choice but to move out. I know he's worried about his mother, but this is too much. I sighed deeply. A few days passed, and suddenly I was living with my mother-in-law. I had never been a caregiver before, so everything was new to me. I had to spend most of my day feeding, bathing, and toileting for my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law didn't want me to take care of her, and she hardly communicated with me. Furthermore, when I tried to talk to her, she would hide in bed saying she was in pain. When my mother-in-law was healthy, We didn't have a bad relationship. In fact, we sometimes exchanged the delicious-looking snacks we found at the department store. Perhaps she was too frail to care for others. On the other hand, my husband Caleb, who had forced us to move in together, rarely came home. After work, he would go out for drinks and come home in the morning. Even on his days off, he would find some reason to go out. When he comes home, all he does is play video games in his room. I decided to talk to Caleb while he was playing games. I know you can't avoid working overtime or drinking with your colleagues, but can't you at least help me take care of your mother when you are at home? Or I would like you to help me with the housework. I said this, and Caleb replied without looking away from the screen. What are you being so naive? Housework and caregiving are both your jobs. I'm tired from working, you know. Oh, I'm almost out of coffee. Go make me some. And clean this room, okay? And take these to the dry cleaner. I need them by Wednesday. My husband spoke one-sidedly and threw his work clothes at me. This time, I was annoyed and retorted, "That's enough! I've been doing housework and taking care of your mother every day for the past month without a break. Why can't you at least help me a little?" Caleb then slams the game controller down on the desk and stands up with a mighty thud. How dare you talk to me like that? Who do you think you owe your livelihood to? If you have a problem with me, then get out. Come on, get your shit together and get out. Well, I feel sorry for my mom. She's going to be left alone without anyone to take care of her. That being said, I couldn't say a word. It's true, I only have a little money saved up, and I can't leave my mother-in-law who can't do anything for herself. I held back, picked up his suit, and left the room. After about 6 months of such a difficult life, my mother-in-law suddenly passed away. I woke up in the morning and went to check on her like I always do. But that day, she was no longer breathing. I called an ambulance and took her to the hospital, but it was too late. Caleb was in tears and sad. I don't know why, but I couldn't cry. I felt cold when I saw Caleb, crying without hesitation. I thought to myself, you didn't do anything to help her. And when I realized that I don't have to take care of her anymore, I felt a sense of relief. I felt guilty for feeling that way. Time passed so quickly. After the wake and funeral, I suddenly realized that 2 weeks had passed since my mother-in-law was gone. It's time to organize her belongings. After my husband left for work, I started cleaning my mother-in-law's room. I put her favorite clothes and accessories into the cardboard boxes, one after another. But there wasn't many, so the work was over soon. Next, I opened the cabinet by my mother-in-law's bedside. There was almost nothing in it, but there was a big can on the bottom shelf. I thought I had seen it somewhere before, and it was a can of assorted sweets I had given her when she was still in good health. I wondered why it was there. I opened the lid of the can. There was a letter inside. When I picked up the envelope, I found the words, "Dear Lydia," on it. I hurriedly opened it and looked inside. In trembling letters, there was a message for me. Lydia, I am sorry for making you take care of me. I was ashamed of myself for forcing you to work for me every day. I was also ashamed of my son, Caleb. I know how bad he was to you. Lydia, you should leave him and live your life the way you want. My mother-in-law knew everything. She knew that her son was being selfish and that I was suffering from it. At the end of the letter, she wrote, I am glad that I was able to spend the last days of my life with you, Lydia. Thank you. At that moment, I cried for the first time since my mother-in-law passed away. It was as if everything I had been holding back was flowing out of me. I cried and cried until my tears ran dry. And then I made up my mind. I would divorce my husband. 10 days has passed since I found a letter from my mother-in-law. My husband is still treating me like a slave.
Lydia, I'm missing one of my socks. Where is it? Oh, and take my car to the car wash today. You've got nothing to do, right?
He's going out with his colleagues for golfing today. I guess he's completely forgotten about it. But today is our wedding anniversary. Well, I don't even care about it anymore.
What are you going to do while I'm golfing? You can't just sit around, you know? You have to prepare dinner, clean my room, clean the bathroom. You have a lot to do.
His arrogance left me speechless.
Hey, you hear me? Bring me my sock and a jacket. Hurry up, or I'll be late.
At the moment, Caleb fell to the floor, clutching his stomach. He was in pain and sweating. He told me to call an ambulance as if he was trying to squeeze out the words. I froze at the suddenness of the situation, and my husband yelled at me.
Hurry up, you moron! You're really useless. Can't you even call an ambulance?
Hearing these words, I became strangely calm. Then I called 911, and within minutes, an ambulance arrived with paramedics. The paramedics quickly assessed Caleb's condition and placed him on a stretcher. As they put him on a stretcher, Anne said to me,
You are his wife, aren't you? Would you come with us to the hospital?
Caleb looked at me with pleading eyes as he was placed on the stretcher. I looked him right in the eye and said, No, I will not. I said that firmly with no hesitation.
What?
Caleb's voice came out as if he had lost his mind. This man is a stranger. So, I am not coming. Please take care of the rest. Then, I confronted Caleb with something I had been carrying in my pocket for the past few days. It was the divorce papers that I was forced to sign when we had a fight a while ago. My husband had always told me that if I disobeyed him, he would serve me with the divorce papers. Caleb tried to snatch the divorce papers from me, but he can't seem to move due to the pain. So he has to lean back on the stretcher without any efforts. Excuse me, but please, leave now. As I said this, the paramedics finally took my husband away. In the ambulance, he must have been looked as a poor husband whose wife has given him a divorce. He should be embarrassed. I watched the ambulance leave and then left the house. It took a long time, but the divorce papers were accepted, and the divorce was officially finalized. While Caleb was in the hospital for a week, I was busy packing my belongings and sending them to my parents' house. Then one day, I ran into Caleb when I was at the grocery store.
Lydia, please don't do this to me.
You love me, don't you? Please, don't leave me. I admit I've made some mistakes. You listened to me no matter what I said.
So I just got carried away.
The overbearing attitude he had a few months ago, it's gone, and he looks completely pathetic. What are you talking about? The divorce is already finalized. It's too late for you to act so fragile. Go ahead, live your life as you please. He didn't really think that I was going to divorce him, and he looked quite shocked. His hands were shaking and his face was turning pale. Well, that's that then. Bye. It had been 6 months since Caleb and I had divorced. Caleb had once visited my parents' house. He had been ringing the intercom at my parents' house and calling out my name so loudly that I had no choice but to see him. Sure enough, he wanted me to get back together with him. When I kept quiet, he began to reveal his current lifestyle to me. He can't cook because he has forced me to do all the housework. He eats only TV dinners or eats out. He has gained 10 pounds since the divorce. It's true that he put a lot of fat on his face and stomach that you can see at a glance. In addition, he doesn't seem to understand how to do laundry. The shirts he wears are wrinkled and smell weird, making him look even filthy.
I finally realized how great you have done, Lydia. If I don't do something, the people at the company won't like me.
Caleb said so and started sobbing. The cheap tears. In other words, he wants to treat me like a servant again. There is no way I'm going back to that. No, never. If you make any more noise, I'll call the police. I treated him like he was a stranger. Then, Caleb started to be afraid of the words police and left the house crying. I'm sure he wouldn't get involved anymore. I hope so. My ex-husband seemed to be leading a very inconvenient life. On the other hand, I was leading a fairly comfortable life. For a while, I was staying at my parents' house, but now I rent a small apartment and live alone. My standard of living is much lower than when I lived with my ex-husband. But I still like this life, that I can have my own time. I thought it would be difficult to get another job at my age. But a friend of mine happened to have a friend who retired, and I was able to get a job to take her place. I feel so happy to be able to spend time and money only on myself, without anyone telling me what to do. From now on, I want to take care of myself at my own pace. It's the beginning of the new chapter of my life. You're actually terrible at cooking. My husband assumed that I didn't do the housework and hired a housekeeper because I took care of my appearance every day, even though the food he was eating was cooked by his own mother. He claimed that I prepared it instead of the housekeeper today. I was tempted to ask him if he had forgotten the taste of his home cooking, but he wouldn't have believed me, and that would have only made me feel vain. When I started to get fed up with my marriage, he came up with an even bigger problem. My name is Gabby, 28 years old. I'm a beauty influencer, a blogger, and a housewife. My 2-year-older husband, Matt, is the opposite of me. He is an associated professor at a well-known private university, and is busy with his research every day. He even has to stay overnight when it was time for the senior thesis. I want to take good care of such a hard-working husband, that I prepared healthy meals and make sure the clothes are neatly ironed. I try my best to create a comfortable living space. Matt was in the same club as me in high school. We started dating then. After graduating, he went to attend the university, and I got a job at my favorite cosmetic brand. He was a nerd who stayed away from girls in high school. I was attracted to his sincerity and seriousness as we spent time together in club activities, and I confessed my feeling to him. It was the first time a girl had ever asked him out, and he seemed to be intimidated, but he agreed. After that, I started to taking care of his look and giving him a haircut. My intuition was not to be underestimated. When I gave him a makeover, he looked very much to my liking. Of course, it wasn't just the outside that I liked. As we spent time together, I came to admire his knowledgeable and dependable side, and even liked his naive and out-of-touch attitude towards girls. Before we got married, he was crazy about me because I took very good care of my appearance compared to the other woman. "I'm so lucky to have met you," he used to tell me. I always reply that I was the luckiest, as I liked him for a long time. We were always happy with each other. But then he started to look down on me after we got married 2 years ago. "Honey, let's grow up, since we are married now." He looked at me with disdain. When I made mistakes doing the housework at the beginning of our marriage, I ironed his shirts in the wrong way and made creases, and had the drainage clogged by not cleaning it. I was also not used to cooking and made numerous mistakes, but I made an effort and became good at it. I also believed I gave a truly comfortable home life to him as best as I could. He seemed to think I was still the same as when we were first married. "You should call my mom and have her show you how to do things," he blatantly suggested. "Call your mom? For what? Why? What else do I need to learn? Did I do something wrong? I don't mean it like that. But you don't change the way you look, even after we got married. I suppose you are not getting any better at housework and the food. You buy ready-made somewhere and put it on a plate, right? Or have you hired a housekeeper?" He plucked my nerves that I yelled at him for the first time. "How could you say such things to me? I've been putting in my efforts. Do you think I'm just hanging around while you were at work? How dare you?" He frowned at me and uttered, "Why do women get so emotional?" Then he walked out. I had never gotten temperamental with him before, so his comment made me wonder if he was comparing me with someone else. I tried to erase such a thought by reminding myself that he was too honest to cheat on me, and somehow suppressed my anxiety. The next day, my mother-in-law really came to our house, so I had to let her in. I was supposed to go out for blogging, but my plans completely fell through. She was a quiet and gentle person, so even if there was something wrong with the way I did my chores, she wasn't going to talk to me in a nasty way. I thought to myself as I offered a cup of tea with a forced smile. She had been scanning the room and said, "The room looks immaculate to the point it looks brand new." And then she looks astonished as she sipped her tea. This is so nice. It tastes much better than the one in cafes. I'm glad you like it. Matt told me to learn how to take care of the house from you. I've been worried that I was going about it the wrong way. I see. Shall we check together? Please, and let me know if I do anything wrong. I showed her how I ironed and had her check the toilet and bathroom. Matt asked me to come here and check. Only yesterday. I doubt that you can get everything so perfectly done if you did it in a rush. I can see that you take really good care of his work clothes too. What's wrong with him? Complaining about your amazing job. Maybe he's not satisfied with my cooking. I'll make lunch. So, can you please stay and try it? She watched me cook in the kitchen and praised me. You are so efficient. So much better than me. She set up the table for me and we sat down to eat. She exclaimed, "How delicious!" Actually, when you were first married, Matt told me that you made a lot of mistakes. I can see you worked very hard. When she praised me, I felt the warmth in my heart and tears came up. What's wrong? Sorry. I'm just happy to hear that. Matt never appraised my food, so I was worried that he didn't like it, even though I thought it was good. I'm finally assured. Once I started speaking out my feelings, my tears flowed freely. As an adult, it was embarrassing to cry in front of someone, but she spoke kind words to me again, which made me cry even more. You are doing great. I know you're busy doing more than just being a housewife. You should take it easy. Other housewives are more hands-off. You are very hardworking and dedicated. You need to take a break when you can. She was so kind to me all the way, and even offered to scold Matt for me. I had never heard of a mother-in-law around me taking the wife's side and complained about her own son. I really thought I married into a nice family. Matt seemed to have been told off by his mother, and from then on, he never remarked about the chores. Apparently, he assumed that I was neglecting my housework because I had my nails done and spent time putting on makeup. My relief was short-lived. Hey, hon, it just doesn't make sense to me. I went to my friend's house the other day. His wife wore minimal makeup, and her hands were rough. She cooked wearing a used apron. But you keep your hair long and healthy, and your hands are well taken care of. Your apron always looks clean, and your makeup is perfect too. My mom says you are hardworking, but don't you actually have a housekeeper? Matt again brought back the subject. Oh my gosh! How long has your friend been married? About 5 years. What does his wife do? She is a waitress in an upscale restaurant. When I asked for more details, I found that the living condition was so different between them and us. Firstly, we lived in 2 bedrooms apartment, but to live in a 2-story house. The wife had a full-time job on top of taking care of the house. And the day Matt was there, she actually just got back from work and started cooking. No wonder she looked as he described. I was sure she wasn't allowed to put on tons of makeup to work. She must have had some washing and cleaning to do both at work and home. So her hands naturally become dry. After 5 years of living like that, it would have been hard to keep a youthful look unless she decided to do so. I made my living writing beauty blogs, so I was just trying to look good as a job. I sighed in dismay at how simple-minded he was. You don't observe people at all, do ya? You go into great detail about your research, but you don't use your brain for anything else. What the hell? You, a high school graduate, put me with a master's degree down. You and I are on different levels. Don't you ever look down at me. How's our education level relevant to the subject? Yes, it is. You're ignorant that you dress up every day and pretend to do your chores. You're really just hanging around while I'm at work, aren't you? Do you seriously think so? I can't think of it any other way. You're not a celebrity. Even after the marriage, you stay looking immature with a flashy appearance. It's actually painful to watch. I know I'm not a celebrity, but look at my blog. I tried to show him my blog page and social media account, but he was annoyed and looked away. Then he insulted me with a terribly unpleasant tone of voice. Oh, right. You're still keeping the old hobby you used to do. My students seem to be into that kind of thing. Don't you feel ashamed being on the same level as them at almost 30 years old? His words shocked me beyond belief, and I turned off the screen. How could you say such a thing when you know I make a living with these? It's like a part-time job for a student, right? He saw my work before we were married and praised me. Wow, amazing. You are really talented. I couldn't understand how his admiration turned into such spite. I was too hurt that I couldn't sleep and stayed up in the living room all night. Suddenly, my mother-in-law's gentle smile flashed in my mind. How could Matt be the son of such a kind mother? Maybe he took his stoic father's side. Those thoughts went on and on all night. I went into depression and couldn't do any work or chores from the next day. I half-heartedly served a bowl of cereal and coffee for breakfast in front of Matt, and went back to sleep until noon after he left. When I was awake, I had no motivation to do anything, not even watch TV. I forced myself to take a walk, but it was just dull, so I went home and slept again. Matt came back and said to me, who didn't came out of bed, "See? I was right. My mom wouldn't have blamed me." I had no energy to retort to his sarcasm. My mother-in-law came to check on me the next day. "Hi, Gabby. I'm really sorry about that idiot son of mine. He seemed to think he's right no matter what I say to him. Let me do some housework for you today. You take a rest." She cheerily did the cleaning and laundry and even prepared dinner for us. "I am very sorry to have bothered you." I couldn't say anything else but apologized to her. She just smiled and shrugged me off like it was nothing. When Matt ate the dinner, he smirked condescendingly at me and said, "So, this is your cooking, right? You really had a housekeeper prepare for food before, didn't you? You finally decided to make it on your own after I guessed it right. You are actually a terrible cook." Even though I had no willpower, I couldn't ignore his comment. "Apologize." "Excuse me?" "I'm telling you to apologize for criticizing the food. You are the worst kind of person, asshole. He was about to say something, but I couldn't stand to listen to another unpleasant word out of his mouth. I quickly grabbed my purse and got out of the apartment.
So nice to be a carefree housewife.
I was enraged hearing his voice behind me. Then I went to see my in-laws, who offered me to stay. Not only my mother-in-law, but my father-in-law was upset with Matt, and they apologized to me over and over. I couldn't help but wonder how such a twisted person could come out of these kind parents. Still, he was my husband, and I shouldn't have given up on him easily. With this thought, I went to discuss the matter with him at the university the next day. I had been there a few times to deliver the materials he had forgotten at home. Back then, his students poked fun at him, and he seems to be very uncomfortable that I started to make sure he didn't forget anything. I felt nostalgic as I walked towards his office, but on the way there, I saw him walking happily with a girl I didn't know. She looked to be around 20 years old, so she must have been his student. She looked around to check there was nobody and hang on to Matt's arm as she purred his name. Careful! If anyone sees us! Contrary to his words, he looked quite pleased. I should have kept my composure, but I found myself in front of them. Wait a minute. What do you think you're doing? Are you cheating on me? Matt was clearly annoyed with my appearance, but he proudly introduced the girl to me.
This is Rachel. She's a student here and is also in my workshop. I've been seeing her for 3 months now. I realized that I prefer a woman who is well educated and well spoken rather than a low educated one. I never thought he would mess with his students. I was too shocked that I asked him an unnecessary question. Does that mean you were having an affair? Oh my god, you're so slow.
That's what I just told you.
You see, Rachel, my wife is not very smart. There are so many brilliant minds in this university, and Rachel is one of the top students who are moving on to graduate school. She is a world away from an uneducated, kicked-up hag like you. We're getting a divorce, ASAP.
He grimaced at me, but Rachel was turning white next to him. She seemed to be shaking as well.
What's wrong, sweetie?
He noticed her unusual demeanor and asked her worriedly.
We're done.
Her teary eyes looked straight into Matt's as she proclaimed,
What happened?
Don't you get it? Your wife is a super famous influencer. What do you think would happen if she announces your adultery on her platforms? People would find out I was the mistress, and my life would be over then. She was looking white as a ghost and started apologizing furiously. I am very sorry. I had no idea he was your husband. I just wanted to have a fling. She looked terrible as she trembled, and her voice cracked and quavered. I smirked as I spoke to her. A fling, you say? If you were so smart, you should have calculated the risk of your fling. But it's good to know what happens if you messed with a married man while you were young. It's better to experience this kind of failure at your age. It's easier to bounce back when you're young, you know? She made a jerking motion when I giggled. Don't worry. I'm not going to post about the affair and divorce. But I'll make sure you take responsibility. I wish you a good life. Yes, I'm really sorry. I'll break up with Matt, she declared and left her contact details with me before she ran away. Then, the real deal started. Now, you and I should have a proper discussion about the future. Come to your parents' house after work. Let's discuss this at length, including your parents. I visited an office of a divorce lawyer before I headed back. I had prepared the necessary documents, so the consultation was smooth. All I had to do was wait for Matt to show up. When he finally arrived at the house at 9 p.m., his father yelled at him first.
Matt, sit here. I have a lot to say to you.
He looked frightened as he sat down, and his father continued.
What the hell were you thinking? Having an affair? I am embarrassed to have you as a son. Moreover, you are so wrong about Gabby's work. She's making much more money than you.
What? I showed my financial report to perplexed Matt. Here you go. This is from last month. I have some projects from big companies that pay a lot. And I am also active in video distribution now. So I am making a lot of money. It's more than double your salary, isn't it? I was making all this money and doing all the housework.
No way! Your hands don't look rough at all. It's crazy looking like you and doing all the housework at the same time, isn't it?
After being told the same thing over and over again, I was quite annoyed and thanked him sarcastically. Thank you for your compliments. You know, I'm a beauty influencer, so I'm super careful about how I look. I use rubber gloves when I wash dishes, and I have so many aprons that I can change every day. I watch what I eat and keep my skin and hair looking good. These things depend on what you eat. It's a false accusation to say that I don't do housework just because I look pretty, without knowing anything about it.
But my friend's wife...
Maybe she doesn't care about how she looks. She can't wear a tons of makeup when she works at an upscale restaurant anyway. Cleanliness comes first, so no accessorizing. In some restaurant, you must keep your hair long and be able to tie it back. You can't expect her to make an effort to improve her appearance. He became speechless. And we are not done talking about the affair. How could you fool around with your student? Don't you think that your behavior is more embarrassing than my appearance?
No, because she's smart and pretty. And most of all, she's dedicated and hardworking.
The moment he said that, his mother sighed and shook her head. The dedicated and hardworking person you like is exactly referring to Gabby. She works hard every day, perfecting her chores while working, with no time to rest. Didn't you notice yesterday? She was exhausted. So I cooked dinner, but you must have thought it tasted different.
Oh my god! That disgusting food? But that was Gabby. Disgusting? I cooked it. Do you have a poor taste bud? You grew up eating my food. But have you already forgotten? Well, that's how good Gabby must have been. Cooking doesn't improve overnight. You should acknowledge how much effort she puts in for you.
Matt slumped down and said nothing to retort. He must have finally realized he was wrong. But it was too late. Well, it seems we have discussed enough. Let's wrap up the family meeting now. I hired a divorce lawyer, so you will hear from him soon. Matt was flustered as soon as I pulled out on my lawyer's card. His parents were on my side and told him not to make any more trouble. Matt, be ready to pay a hefty sum of alimony on the grounds of adultery. Also, if you have any conscience left, don't even think about the division of property. You didn't help me with chores at all, but insulted me all the time, and have never cooperated as a couple. You have no right to my assets, I declared him. I'm really sorry. It's all my fault. I'll never do it again. You've been right all along. He grabbed my hand, but my mind was set. I told my in-laws that I was very grateful for their kindness and care. Thank you so much for everything. I tried to smile, but it was difficult to hold it as I held back my tears. The in-laws promised me that they would make sure Matt follows through his responsibility. I returned to my parents' house for the time being, and Matt and I started proceeding with an uncontested divorce soon after. I was able to receive 70% from property distribution. When I asked Rachel to pay $10,000 in compensation, she cried to her parents for help. As a result, she took a break from her study and was forced to get a job to pay off her debt on a monthly basis. She was told that if she wanted to go back to the university, she would have to pay off her debt to her parents first. Since Matt started living alone, his apartment became a dump, and he could no longer lead a decent life. His students laughed at his disheveled appearance. He couldn't concentrate on his research anymore, and his professors were disappointed with him. They said it's going to be tough for him to get a promotion. As for me, after the divorce was finalized and settled, I started living alone in the city. I feel relieved and carefree now that I only have to take care of myself. I will continue to improve myself in my work. I am determined to work harder now that I was single.